If you hold dual citizenship or you're thinking about getting a second passport, I need you to stop what you're doing right now. 2026 has brought some serious changes that could quietly impact your travel, your taxes, your paperwork, and yes, in some cases, even your freedom to cross borders without complications. The rules have shifted. Reporting requirements have gotten stricter. Passport procedures are changing in ways that most people haven't even heard about yet. And if you're not paying attention to these new requirements, you could be looking at airport delays, uncomfortable questions at border control, financial penalties, or situations that spiral into something far more stressful than necessary. Now, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you. These updates matter because they affect millions of people worldwide who live, study, work, visit family, and build their lives across multiple countries. So stick with me through this entire video. Take a breath. Let's break this down together, slowly and clearly. I'm Michael, and this is Michael Visa Guide. My mission is simple. I take complex immigration information and make it understandable, practical, and manageable. Today, I'm walking you through exactly what's changing, who's affected, when these updates kick in, and most importantly, what you need to do next, and what you absolutely should not do. Look, I get it. Immigration topics can feel overwhelming. The terminology is confusing. The rules don't always make sense, and sometimes it feels like one small mistake could derail everything. If you've ever worried about using the wrong passport at the airport, not knowing what you're supposed to report to the government, or whether a sudden policy change could mess with your status, you're not imagining things. Thousands of people share those exact same fears. But here's the good news. Information creates clarity, and clarity creates confidence. Not every change applies to everyone. Not every update is bad news. And understanding the rules ahead of time replaces fear with control. So let's start from the ground up. Before we dive into new reporting requirements or passport changes, we need to understand what dual citizenship actually means in plain language. Dual citizenship, or dual nationality, means you're legally recognized as a citizen of two countries at the same time. This can happen several ways. You might be born in one country to parents from another. You might marry someone and gain citizenship through them. You might naturalize after living abroad while keeping your original citizenship. Or your children might be born overseas and automatically receive citizenship in more than one country from birth. For most people, dual citizenship is incredibly valuable. It makes travel easier. It keeps families connected across borders. It preserves cultural identity and opens doors for work, education, and security. In most cases, especially in the United States, dual citizenship is perfectly legal. The U.S. recognizes that you can hold another nationality without automatically losing your American citizenship. But here's where it gets important. Having two citizenships sometimes means having two sets of responsibilities. Two governments may want certain information from you. Two countries may have different rules about passports, travel records, taxes, or reporting requirements. And as technology advances and countries share more data than ever before, the systems tracking travel, identity, and financial transparency have become interconnected in ways they never were before. That's exactly why these 2026 updates matter so much. They're not about punishing anyone. They're about security, identity verification, fraud prevention, and financial transparency. But when systems get tighter, people who don't understand the rules can accidentally create problems for themselves. A missed form, a passport that doesn't match another document, a trip booked without checking expiration dates. Small oversights can snowball into major headaches simply because you didn't know better. So as we move forward, remember this. Dual citizenship itself isn't the problem. Having more than one passport is legal in most situations. What matters is awareness, accuracy, and honesty. If something feels confusing, you're not alone. Plenty of educated people struggle with immigration rules, and that's completely okay. My goal here is to walk you through each update calmly, help you recognize where you need to pay attention, and remind you that information is your strongest form of protection. We'll take this step by step. I'll explain what changed, who it affects, and how to stay prepared without panicking. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest areas where people with dual citizenship need to be way more aware: reporting requirements. Over the last few years, governments worldwide, including the United States, have strengthened their systems for tracking financial transparency and identity reporting. This isn't specifically targeting immigrants or dual citizens. It's mainly about preventing fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and abuse of international financial systems. But the reality is, when rules get stricter, ordinary people sometimes get caught up simply because they didn't understand what needed to be reported. If you're a U.S. citizen, whether you live in the United States or somewhere else, the U.S. expects you to report your worldwide income. That means if you earn money in another country, maintain a bank account overseas, or hold investments outside the U.S., there are situations where those must be disclosed to U.S. authorities, even if you're already paying taxes in that other country. Dual citizenship doesn't erase those obligations. In some cases, it actually makes reporting slightly more complicated. For many people, the idea of reporting foreign accounts feels intimidating. But in reality, most people aren't punished for simply having a bank account back home. The real problems start when someone has accounts, assets, or business interests and doesn't report them when they're legally required to. That's when delays, penalties, and stressful letters from authorities begin showing up. Over recent years, data sharing agreements between countries have gotten much stronger. Financial institutions in many parts of the world now cooperate with the United States when they detect accounts owned by U.S. persons. That means it's becoming harder and frankly pointless to try hiding anything. What matters isn't fear. What matters is clarity. If you're unsure whether something needs to be reported, that doesn't make you a criminal. It just means you need accurate information. Keeping copies of financial statements, knowing where your money is, and being honest when filling out forms already protects you more than you realize. And remember, not everyone is affected the same way. Plenty of people with dual citizenship have straightforward situations and never encounter problems. If you feel lost or confused, you're absolutely not alone. Now let's shift to something every dual citizen eventually deals with: travel, passports, and border rules. This is where misunderstandings are extremely common, and yet the rule itself is actually quite simple. If you're a U.S. citizen, the United States requires you to enter and leave the country using your U.S. passport, even if you hold citizenship in another country, even if you have a valid visa in that other passport, even if you're traveling with both passports in hand. When you step up to U.S. immigration, the document you present must be your U.S. passport. For many people, this feels strange at first. They ask, why can't I just use my other passport? The answer is that the U.S. views you as a U.S. citizen first when you're entering the country. Using another passport to enter could create confusion, unnecessary questioning, or delays, because from the U.S. perspective, you're trying to enter as a foreign visitor when you're actually not. At the same time, the other country where you hold citizenship often has a similar expectation. Most countries prefer their citizens enter and exit using their own national passport as well. So in practical terms, dual citizenship usually means using one passport when you leave one country and the other passport when you arrive in the other. For example, a dual citizen traveling between two countries might leave one country using that country's passport, then present the second passport upon arrival in the other. This can feel confusing at first, but it's completely normal. Problems happen when a passport is expired, nearly expired, or contains a name that doesn't match other documents. Add new passport security features, biometric checks, and stronger verification systems to the mix, and you start to see why travelers are being asked more questions than before. None of this automatically means you're in trouble. Often, it just means systems are verifying identity more carefully. One more thing to keep in mind is passport validity. Many countries require your passport to be valid for at least 6 months beyond your intended stay. Airlines check this rule before boarding because they can be fined if they fly someone who gets refused entry later. So even if you're thinking, my passport still has a few months left, a gate agent or immigration officer may see it differently. Renewing early is almost always safer than waiting until the last minute, especially if you hold two passports and need to switch between them while traveling. Staying calm, staying prepared, and planning ahead prevents most problems long before they ever reach the airport desk. Another area that quietly changed for many travelers, including dual citizens, involves security checks and biometric verification. Over the last few years, passports around the world have started including more advanced security features, digital chips, biometric data designed to protect identity and prevent fraud. You've probably noticed new machines at airports scanning faces, fingerprints, or digital passport chips instead of relying only on manual stamping. For most travelers, these systems actually make travel safer and sometimes faster, but they also mean mismatched information becomes easier for authorities to notice. If your name is written differently on two passports, if your date of birth records don't match exactly, or if past travel entries don't appear consistent, the system may flag you for extra questions. That doesn't automatically mean you did something wrong. Often, it just means the system wants to verify that two records truly belong to the same person. Technology is catching small details that older manual systems often missed, and sometimes that can feel intimidating when you're the one being questioned. In moments like that, the most important thing is staying calm and honest. Answer clearly, show your documents, explain briefly why something looks different. Maybe your name changed after marriage. Maybe one country formats names differently. Maybe you renewed your passport recently and the number changed. These are normal human situations. Extra screening doesn't automatically mean trouble is coming. It usually just means identity is being checked more carefully because the new systems rely on accuracy. And remember, countries are increasingly sharing travel information with each other. Border control may already see where you traveled last month or which passport you used on your previous trip. That's not meant to punish you. It's part of global security and fraud prevention. Awareness just helps you avoid panic when something takes a few extra minutes. If an officer asks questions, it's not a personal attack. It's part of their process. Breathe, stay respectful, and let the system do what it needs to do. Now let's quietly shift to a topic that worries some dual citizens: military service obligations in certain countries. Not every country requires it, but some nations still have compulsory service for their citizens, including dual nationals who may not even live there full-time. If you hold citizenship in a country that has mandatory conscription laws, you could technically be expected to follow those rules when you visit or reside there, especially if you're of eligible age. For many families, this comes as a complete surprise. Someone may have grown up in another country, barely speak the language, and suddenly discover they're still considered eligible for service. It can feel frightening and confusing, especially when those obligations conflict with work, education, or family life in the United States. From the U.S. perspective, dual citizenship alone doesn't automatically create a problem. However, serving in certain positions or engaging with a foreign military under specific circumstances can complicate things, particularly if there's political tension or security risk involved. These cases are rare, but serious enough that they deserve awareness. If your other country has military requirements, the best approach isn't to panic, and it's not to ignore it either. Contact the embassy or consulate of that country and ask clear questions about your status. Many nations have exemptions, deferments, waivers, or special rules for citizens who primarily live abroad, and if you're uncertain about whether fulfilling or refusing those obligations could affect your situation in the United States, speaking with a qualified professional can give you peace of mind before you act. The most important message is simple. Don't assume, don't fear, don't make rushed decisions. Seek information, understand your position, and move carefully. Another area that raises questions for many people with dual citizenship is voting and political involvement. A lot of people worry that casting a vote in their other country might somehow threaten their status in the United States. In most cases, it doesn't. As a U.S. citizen, you have the right to vote in U.S. elections whether you live inside the country or abroad, and many other countries also allow their citizens to vote while living overseas. So it's possible for dual citizens to legally vote in both systems as long as each vote follows that country's laws. Where complications sometimes appear isn't with voting itself, but with deeper political participation. Running for office in a foreign government, accepting certain government roles, or participating in sensitive political positions can raise questions about loyalty, obligations, or intent. These situations are rare, and they're usually evaluated on a case-by-case basis, but they're worth understanding before stepping into something serious. If you ever find yourself unsure, Pause before acting, gather information, and ask questions rather than assuming everything is automatically fine. Honesty is always your safest path. When forms ask whether you hold another citizenship or whether you've participated in any government roles, answer truthfully. Problems usually arise not because someone voted, but because something important wasn't disclosed when asked. Staying transparent prevents issues before they begin. Now let's talk about children, because dual citizenship often begins at birth, and parents sometimes don't realize how important early documentation is. When a child is born outside the United States to a U.S. citizen parent, that child may still be eligible for U.S. citizenship from birth, depending on the parent's history and circumstances. At the same time, many countries automatically grant citizenship to any child born on their soil. That means a baby can become a dual citizen from day one without anyone really planning it. The challenge appears later when the child grows up and needs proof. If parents never reported the birth to the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate, or never obtained a formal record confirming citizenship, that child may face unexpected barriers when applying for a U.S. passport, enrolling in school, traveling, or proving identity. It can feel heartbreaking when a young adult discovers their documentation was never completed properly, not because of wrongdoing, but because their parents didn't know the process existed. The good news is awareness helps. Reporting a birth abroad, keeping copies of important records, applying for passports early, and making sure names and dates match across documents protects children from stress later. And even if the paperwork wasn't completed at the time of birth, it doesn't always mean everything is lost. There may still be paths to correct, confirm, or claim status with the right guidance and patience. The key message is simple. Document early, double-check details, and keep everything in one safe place. Children depend on adults to protect their future identity. Taking the time now prevents confusion, complicated interviews, and emotional frustration later in life. Some people with dual citizenship eventually wonder whether they should give up one of their nationalities, usually because they feel overwhelmed by rules, paperwork, or taxes. Renouncing citizenship sounds simple when you hear it discussed online, but in reality it's one of the most serious and permanent decisions a person can make. Once you formally renounce a citizenship, you're not just taking a break from it. You're closing a door that often cannot be reopened. You lose the automatic right to live, work, vote, and receive protections from that country. You may also lose the ability to pass citizenship to your children in the future. In some cases, people renounce first and only later realize how deeply it affects their sense of identity, family connections, or safety options during global crises. There are also practical steps most people don't realize exist: interviews, fees, paperwork, final tax filings, and sometimes an emotional process that feels heavier than expected. None of this means renunciation is always wrong. For a small number of people, it genuinely makes life simpler. But it should never be rushed, never done out of fear, and never decided based only on something heard in a video or read on social media. When decisions affect your entire life and your children's lives, it's wise to slow down, ask questions, and fully understand the long-term consequences before doing anything that cannot be undone. With all of this information, it can feel like there are 1,000 rules moving at once. But the truth is, staying prepared usually comes down to a few simple habits. Keep your passports valid and avoid letting them get too close to expiration. Renew early, not late. Make sure names, dates of birth, and spelling are consistent across passports, birth records, and travel documents. Keep your immigration papers, tax records, and important certificates together in one safe place so they're easy to find when needed. If you have bank accounts or assets in another country, know where they are, keep statements, and don't ignore letters or notices. When something on a form confuses you, don't guess. Pause, research, or ask someone qualified. Keep a simple record of your travel history, especially if you use different passports when entering different countries. That basic note can save you hours later if questions arise. And most importantly, remember that none of this is about being perfect. It's about being aware, honest, and organized. Immigration systems can feel intimidating, but preparation turns fear into confidence. You don't need to panic. You don't need to figure everything out overnight. You just need to stay informed, move carefully, and take things one step at a time. Travel gets even more interesting when dual citizens visit countries where they don't hold citizenship at all. In those situations, deciding which passport to use usually comes down to practicality. Many travelers choose the passport that offers the easiest entry, the fewest visa requirements, or shorter lines at immigration. For example, some passports allow visa-free entry to certain regions, while others require advance permits. The U.S. passport is powerful in many parts of the world, but there are still destinations where different passports can actually make travel smoother. What matters most is checking entry rules before booking flights, not at the airport gate. Each country sets its own conditions, and those rules can change. Some require online authorization before arrival. Others expect proof of return tickets, hotel reservations, or vaccination records. Dual citizens sometimes assume having two options guarantees flexibility, but it still requires planning. Always make sure the passport you plan to use has enough validity left, enough blank pages, and matches your ticket details. When immigration officers see confidence and consistency, travel becomes easier. When something doesn't line up, conversations become longer than expected, and that stress is completely avoidable with a little preparation. Now let's talk briefly about government employment and security clearances, because this is another area where dual citizenship sometimes brings extra scrutiny. Many people dream of working in public service, law enforcement, defense, research, or other sensitive roles in the United States. Holding dual citizenship doesn't automatically disqualify someone, but it can lead to deeper background checks. Authorities may look at your ties to the other country, such as relatives who live there, property you own, financial accounts, or past travel patterns. The concern isn't punishment. It's simply about understanding whether there could be conflicting obligations or pressure from another government. Some positions, especially highly classified ones, may expect you to choose one citizenship over another. That decision can be deeply personal, emotional, and complicated. If this ever becomes part of your journey, it's important to slow down and think, not panic. Many dual citizens successfully work in government roles after clear explanations, transparency, and careful review. Honesty, once again, becomes the most powerful tool. Trying to hide another citizenship is what usually creates serious problems, not the citizenship itself. When you look at everything we've discussed, passports, reporting rules, travel requirements, documentation for children, security screenings, and all the what-if questions, it's completely natural to feel a little overwhelmed. Immigration journeys are rarely just paperwork. They carry hope, fear, sacrifice, family dreams, and sometimes years of waiting. Many people live between two cultures, two languages, two systems, and that can feel heavy at times. If you've ever sat awake at night wondering whether you filled something out correctly, or whether a letter from immigration might change your future, I want you to know something important. You are not alone. Millions of people all over the world are navigating the same uncertainties, asking the same questions, and quietly carrying the same anxiety. And most of them, just like you, are simply trying to follow the rules, protect their families, and build stable lives. That's why staying informed matters so much. Information doesn't solve every problem, but it turns fear into preparation and confusion into clarity. When you hear about a new rule, you can pause, listen, and understand whether it applies to you rather than rushing into panic. When something feels unclear, you can ask for guidance instead of guessing. And when your journey feels tiring, you can remind yourself that progress with immigration is often slow, but it does move forward. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. You're doing your best inside systems that are complex, even for professionals. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply stay calm, stay organized, and keep learning one step at a time. As we wrap up today's update, let's bring everything back to the core message. Dual citizenship is not a mistake. It's not a problem by itself. But 2026 brings stronger reporting expectations, more careful passport verification, and systems that now communicate with each other more than ever before. That means small details matter. Renewing early matters. Being honest matters. Keeping documents organized matters. And making decisions slowly, thoughtfully, and with awareness protects you far more than fear ever will. If something you heard today applies to you, don't rush, don't assume, and don't panic. Simply note it, learn more, and move forward carefully. Immigration journeys can be stressful, complicated, and emotional, but they're also journeys of courage and resilience. Staying informed is one of the best ways to protect your freedom to travel, your ability to plan, and your peace of mind. If today's update helped you feel clearer or calmer, I'm truly glad. Sharing information like this can help others too. So if you feel comfortable, consider liking this video or passing it along to someone who may benefit from it. And if you want steady, reliable explanations of U.S. immigration news, visa updates, and citizenship guidance, you're always welcome here at Michael Visa Guide. If you have a question, an experience, or a situation you're unsure about, feel free to share in the comments. Your story might help someone else realize they're not alone. Thank you for being here with me today, for trusting me with your time, and for staying informed about something so important to your life and your future. I'm Michael, and I'll see you in the next update where we continue walking through this journey together, step by step.